just beyond the next planet, just beyond the next star.
Been a hell of a run. I never thought it would come to an end.
A brig is bigger than this.
A lot of things change in 200 years.
Here's to the next generation.
Okay, hey, welcome back to the Sloppy Modeler. Just walking through what we've got as far as the USS Enterprise, the NX-01, from the model of the same name, or the series of the same name, the Enterprise. And I have actually sealed up the hull now. I have all my wiring done, and I've got my 2 wires out here where I put my post in. Still have to do quite a bit of filling, so I've got filling I have to put in here, and fill in that hole and that hole there. That's where you mount the secondary hull if you've got the secondary hull that you're doing for the NX-01 Refit. So right now I'm just going around, and anywhere I've got a pretty sizable gap. Actually, there's one right there that I got to figure out how to not necessarily fill that, but I think I need to close that up, honestly, right there. So that's one. Around the saucer, this actually looks pretty good. I need to do a little sanding, but we've got progress made around the saucer side, and in the front, that looks pretty nice from here and here. And all I did is actually took my little syringe here with microcrystal clear. It's got a steel point, so I can always unclog that pretty easily. And then I just with a real tiny light flow, just laid it around like that, where I was seeing light. And then all I did was take a wet Q-tip and then smooth that out. So it's kind of like the ultimate little putty work for some of this stuff. And some of it works, some of it doesn't, but for the most part it makes a lot of progress in a hurry when you're trying to figure out. So I got a little more work back here on this piece. This actually looks pretty good. And for the most part I'm pretty pleased. So if I take a moment to light this up, let's go ahead and fire it up. I'll show you with the lights in their current state, and we'll talk about what we've got to do next. Alright, so I still have the Bassard collectors taped off. This is the only one I untaped from the chiller grill. I need to retape that. I pulled it off to make sure I could get to a couple things. But that looks really nice. My impulse engines are fantastic. That blue coming through nicely. I have to, again, fill these holes here, but that shouldn't be too bad. I do have light coming up through these, and I think I'm going to put a different clear piece in there to make that stand out. So that's pretty good. And for the most part, most of my light leaks are done. There's a light leak behind that little red engine. That one looks like I filled it. A little bit of light leak here along this red, and we'll get that figured out. And the front dish, the deflector dish, looks fantastic. So yeah, I'm kind of thrilled with the way that is turning out. I have to start taping some of this off so that I can go ahead and paint it once we the color of the hull. Now, I'm really kind of excited. This turned out really nice, this color. And from that perspective, I really think this is going to look dynamite once I've got this color over the rest of the hull. But that's going to take some time. Oh, probably real quick here. Here are the images for the nav lights. And again, there's two on each side, or 4 total, but a larger one and a smaller one. Same here. Red, that side, those look great. And so that's kind of nice. Now, the big trick is how to keep those from being painted when it comes time to mask that off. And I don't know what the answer to that is yet. but we'll figure that out. And then the rest of the stuff you can pretty well spray, but I do have to mask those 4 points. I have to mask the front where the grill is, or the deflector dish is. I have to mask these 2 lights here, and once those are masked off, then that should take care of that section there. So yeah, I'm pretty thrilled. This is going to turn out, I think, turn out pretty nice once we get it all in and done. So for now, we'll turn off the light and go back to fixing it. Oh, before you go, I know that a lot of people like Tulip, and I've used this paint here in the past, which is a 3D fabric paint, a real deep dark black, and it's thick. But I ran across this at my local hobby shop from Folk Art, and it's Artist Pigment Pure Black, and it is one, it was cheap. I think it was like $1.99 for that. And essentially what I use that for is light blocking. You can see how thick it is. There was a little bit earlier, but you only need just a little dab. Yeah, you really only need just a dab like that, and then grab a brush. I don't want that one. Let's use this one here. I don't like that one either. Yeah, that's better. So once you've got your brush, let's go here to the red. So I've got some light bleed through right there. So basically, just taking this black, and while it's lit up, I can start to fill that in, like so. Same thing in there, I've got that to fill in. And yeah, so now there's no red coming through where that seam is right now. So to me, that's a win. That's a big win. And you know, so I'll do the same thing on a couple other spots once we get to it. So like on this side up here, let's see if I've got any more coming through. And really the way to do this is turn the lights out so you can see it. But you know, so let's see if we've got this here, any progress here. So again, just using a light touch here. And I had already put that microcrystal clear over that joint. And now we're just using this to fill up a couple of the spots. So now we've eliminated that, and it still looks pretty decent in there. There's a little bit more light leak in there, but I think once I get a little more of this sanded, yeah, so that's what we're talking about with this deep dark black paint. So that's what that does, and then I'll sand over that a little bit and give it a spray, and then, you know, there's another pretty big massive light leak here, but once I spray over that, that'll disappear because that's really a glue seam now. And we'll get there. So, very excited, very thrilled with the way that the lighting has turned out in this. I think it's going to be just about right scale-wise, and you know, if that's where we're at, that's where we're at from a scale-wise perspective. I've got to paint the top of that. There's quite a bit to do yet, but I just wanted to get it closed up. I don't have the nacelles permanently attached, but even sitting in their spots, they line up, which is awesome. So having those line up and not be wonky or one side or the other, also a big plus. So for now, I'll leave you at that, and we'll be back with you shortly. Thank you. Alright, hey, welcome back to the NX-01, the Enterprise. And I just want to show you kind of where we're at. I'm going to turn the lights out. Hopefully this will show up under this. I may or may not, but we'll give it a shot. So I have been working on the light leaks, light bleeds, and I managed to get this light bleed across this side here, across the back has been done. Now the cool thing is that there is a little bit of blue that comes through, just like on the regular NX-01. And then you've got this really nice blue here, and you've got a blue piece coming through right there, where my finger is. That's cool. That's exactly like the NX-01. Up, looks like I got a little more light blocking to do there on that inside nacelle. So the inside of these pylons here need a little more work, but we're really close. Everything else all around the edges, including the deflector dish, all these edges here are done. You can see the lights for the navigation, top and bottom are in. These lights really turned out nice, the drilled holes, and once I get some microcrystal clear in there, that's going to be awesome. You can see that the lights for the impulse engines have turned out fantastic, and even got all the light blocking done on these seams here for the nacelles, which were bleeding pretty good. There's still one there in the dark that I see come up, and a little one there in the dark. Hopefully by the time I get a coat of the last coat of gray or silver on here, that will change that dramatically. We'll have to see. So it's kind of a long, tedious process. Fill it, and then come back after it's filled, and then I've been using that pure pigment black in there, and I still haven't done these yet, so I have to do those because that just looks goofy without it. And so yeah, we're definitely making progress here on the NX-01. I'm ready to probably tomorrow put a fresh coat of primer on this. I'm going to tape off all the glass in here. And I'm really concerned about figuring out how to tape off these navigation lights. I don't know if my liquid mask works well on clear. That's one thing I've been finding out. When those look dynamite right now, so I'm just not sure how to do that. Maybe I'll use tape. Maybe I'll hand brush around it first, and then come back after it with some tape, and give me a little more surface area to tape to. The other thing I've got done here is these are the landing platforms, top and bottom. Now they still have, they're going to be awesome, I think, because they still have a tape over it with black on it, black primer, a couple coats of black primer. The inside was completely taped off and then removed, so that's clear Raytheon coming through. And then I think what I'm going to do, once I've got this tape off of here, I'm going to paint those white and then lay in the decal over the top of them, which is a yellow decal. I think that will light up like really fantastic when it comes to lighting this up, and it'll look good in the daytime without any light on it. So yeah, definitely thrilled and excited about the progress we've made on this. And as we progress here for another day, we'll keep at it. I do have to make that hole larger right there. This one's pretty good, but this one needs to just enlarge that a little bit in order to get the light to come up. And what I think I'm going to do there, is paint those in blue crystals. Paint those crystals that insert into there blue, and they'll look blue in here. So it'll be a tri-part blue with again the tops of the impulse engines back here blue, and these are taped over the red Bussard collectors, and once that comes off, that's just going to look amazing in the dark. And honestly, here's the first one for the here's the first nacelle, and I don't know how it looks on camera. It's really blue with two white spots. Those lights are really bright right there. Maybe I could have diffused them a little better, but I didn't want to. but you can see how it feeds from the front and the back on all 4 of those, because there's a light in the front, the front and in the back. So so stay with me on this. We're definitely coming to some milestones. The first part was getting all the light leaks fixed, and I can see I've got one here over the that impulse engine or inlet, and but for the most part I'm really thrilled with the progress on this. So stay with me, and I'll be back soon. Thanks. Welcome back to Sloppy Modeler. Welcome back to the NX-01, and we are making huge progress, and we're almost across the finish line for the NX-01. Now remember, I still have to do the NX-01 refit, and I'm going to do this as a double case. I can't work on 2 models at the same time. Heck, you guys know me, I can barely do 1 at a time, but that is the next step after this one is complete. So let's talk about some of the things we have to do in a bit, but let's talk about what this shows. So the color of this hull is actually a color that I made, that I mixed, let's get the right stuff here, that I mixed up about 85 to 88% Martha Stewart's titanium, and 12 to 15% rose copper. Didn't measure, I just went to view, and I wanted this to be a little more reddish hue than just straight titanium, and it is. And I think it turned out fantastic, that particular color, especially looking at it here under the lights. So those we'll come back to, but that is the hull color in general. The accents you see here, painted throughout the front of the hull, like this section here and here, are actually titanium gold, and that is X31 from Tamiya Paints, and that goes on really nice. It both sprays and brushes really nice, and it leaves you with a really superb finish. So that is titanium gold for those accents. I've also painted this back here, and it should light up just a little bit in the dark. It's not so much bright here. In the future, if I were doing this again with those 3 crystals right there, I would add lights under those, or point lights to them, so that they get a little brighter. The crystal back here is awesome. That turned out fantastic, along with the Bassard collectors. This gold back here is a different gold. It is gold leaf from Tamiya X12, and that's a deep, richer gold, if you will, and that turned out really nice. Also, for the black here on these vents, there's some on the outsides, and then some on the sides. I went to a Deco Art Extreme Sheen metallic paint, and it's obsidian is the color, and I love this color because it's black without being totally pitch black. It's got nice gloss, and it works great. For the leading edges here, I went ahead with my old trusty multi-service premium oil-based paint pen from Craftsmart. That's Michael's for like $4, black, and that's really easy to use and real nice to use. So that's a hull color. Now, there are some other pieces that'll go into here. For instance, the front deflector dish is this one right here, and the front deflector dish turned out awesome. You can see the colors there. That is that rose copper. Again, that rose copper from Martha Stewart. That piece, the piece that fits in behind there, and then there's a piece that fits in underneath here, like right there. I've painted all of those the rose copper, you can see, and that looks really, really cool, along with the antenna that goes inside the deflector dish. So that is rose copper. For the pieces that go here into the back of the nacelles, I've gone back to that titanium gold, and I'll paint, I think, a red and a green over those 2 spots. I'm not going to try to light those, that's way too tough. And then I went with the titanium gold for the top of the bridge. It's not lit up, it just goes over the top of the bridge, and that is going to be dynamite. Over the lower sensor dome, I simply used my white primer and primered inside of that, and that will light. You get a light behind that, and it will look super bright and diffused, and that's going to be awesome right there. Next, this is kind of some fun stuff. So this color here for the side chiller grills is Martha Stewart's Champagne, and that is a gorgeous color. It's different from the hull. You can see the different sheens. You can definitely see the different color there, and I wanted something to offset those blues and so forth, and I think that's going to look amazing in there. What I am going to do yet, however, with these is I'm going to take my hull color, which I've got mixed up here, and I'm going to paint these highlighted center supports and end supports, and just have the champagne on the edges right there. And I believe those are going to look amazing when you put them into that section there. After that, after I put these parts on, then it comes time for the decaling, and I haven't started that yet. I don't know how these decals are going to come together. I do need to get some black wash onto the following areas. These areas here, those there, the back of the impulse engine. So anywhere you've got these ridges, it's time for a little bit of black wash to bring those lines out even deeper throughout the top, and on the bottom there's a few like these right around through here will be black wash. And then finally, I'm not sure if there's decals in the big NX-01. There are decals that go over this section here. I don't know if they are for this, and I don't want to paint it at this stage because that would mean taping the whole thing off, so I'm not going to do that. My next big challenge is taping off these, and I think what I'm going to do is paint those with this champagne color right there. I'm hoping that just a super light sheen, just enough to give it a little bit of metallic, but still have light shine through it. I think that is the next step. So I have to tape those off and spray that, because brushing that will not look good. It needs to be sprayed for an even finish, super light finish. It needs to be sprayed. It's going to be a little bit different color than the hull, but with a decal over it, I think that's going to be a neat effect, because you can kind of see them as they light up. And I'll hit the lights here real quick as we blow out our ISOs, but you can see that they light up underneath that decking already. And so with that, that's exciting. I think that is a pretty awesome look, or it's going to be if I can pull it off towards the end. So that is currently where the NX-01 sits. I have the NX-01 Refit, the actual refit that I'm going to do next, and then I'm going to put both of those onto the same base. I've come up with a solution to put those onto the same base. I think I'm excited about it. We'll see how it turns out in actuality, but I think it's going to be pretty good. The other thing that'll have to be done at some point is lay in microcrystal clear into all these tiny little windows, so that has kind of a lens effect. So you can imagine if you've got just shining light through a tube, it's just going to shine through. You see it if you look in the end of it, but if you put a lens on it and hit it, that lens lights up at the other end. So that's what I'm hoping will happen with the windows in the NX-01, that it should make those a little brighter and bring them a little closer to the surface by having I don't want to say reflective, but maybe a transmittance lens that might go with that. This is a very cool little kit, and it's got a ton of detail if you want to do it. Very cool little kit, and I would highly recommend it for anybody who enjoys the Star Trek Enterprise, the early history of this. Let me go back to work, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you. All right, hey, welcome to the Sloppy Modeler. Welcome back. We are out of the paint booth with our gloss coat over the NX-01, and now we are ready for the decals. I'm going to start on the bottom. The bottom is not too challenging. The bottom's actually fairly straightforward. Essentially what you have here, the biggest challenge is there are a pair of red pinstripes that go over the top of this bumpy stuff, and that is ugly. And that's the number 13s. The number 7s go in here with plenty of flat space. over where my wiring is at, there's actually supposed to be 2 pieces there, so I'm going to have to cut that in half. It's this number 6, I believe it is, and it's a neat decal, but it needs to go right where that wiring is at. So I'm going to have to figure that out. I think what I'll do is just cut that in half and then cut out that center section there. I don't think you're going to miss too much detail on that. Number 7s go up here. These number 4s go over the Raytheon effect where the lighting is at, where the landing bays are at rather, and then some vertical pinstriping. And then number 12 right here goes in the front section. So the bottom is actually pretty straightforward, pretty clear. The only one I'm really concerned about actually out of this whole set is this 5, and that goes around the landing bay, and that is going to be a nightmare. I just think fitting it into that space, the decal looks a lot larger than what I'm seeing there. So we'll figure that out as we come to it, but I think that's my one that's going to give me the most trouble. The rest of this is pretty straightforward, and then once the decals are in, and then I'll give this I think a semi-gloss coat because I want that metal to shine pretty well. So let me go to work on the decaling, and then when we'll be back, then we'll be ready to start the NX-01 Refit. And I have that kit in-house. Grab that. Same kit. It's the NX-01 Refit, and essentially this time we're going to do it with the hull. And we'll have a nice time doing this because I've already been through this once recently. I've got maybe some quicker ways of getting through it. Also, I did get the Lou Dalmaso Aztec Dummy paint mask for that one. That one I'm going to put an Aztec on. This one, I just like the way that this looks, and so we'll leave it as is. So for now, let me go to work on this as far as the decals go, and then we'll close this up. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Okay, hey, welcome back. So in my review of Model Chili's build of this NX-01, when it came time to the decals, he said that they literally disintegrated. They blew up on him trying to get this together. This is, I don't know what Round 2 did, or maybe on this new set, and I don't know who did the decals. Polar lights here. I don't know if it says printed by somebody. Can't tell. Doesn't say. But these are the nicest decals I think I've ever used, with one exception, and we'll talk about that real quick. So they absolutely went in just awesome. Even into these deep crevices here, these lines went in and sunk down almost with virtually no microset even in them. So 2 things I would do differently. This here, I would trim away the carrier film around that, because right now it's over those 2, and that's going to cause a problem when it dries. So what I'll do when it dries is I'll trim that with super sharp scalpel, and then we'll be able to take that away. But right now, this turned out really nice regardless of that. So that's one thing I would do, is trim away that film there, so that it doesn't have trouble going over those ridges there. The other thing that is incorrect in this, if you use this number 12, I know, I'll be really careful. If you use this number 12, when you just put that on directly over this kit, these darker green areas here are actually right next to it, and they end up being down inside of that area there, in that trough. And everything from the decals or details say that they need to be up there. So if I were to do this again, I would trim that, trim those first. I had to trim them after the fact, and that's always a challenge, right? So I trimmed those off of this 12. 12 went in just absolutely amazingly, and then these went on really nice. These 7Bs are just excellent. I am thrilled with the way that those turned out. Even the red ones here over the nacelles turned out fantastic with just a little micro set. So these decals from Round 2, nicely done on this set here. I know that they've had their challenges, but whatever they're doing right now, these are absolutely amazing. So that gives me a lot more confidence on 2 decals that are coming up. One, this great big red thin one, and that's got carrier film over the whole thing. So like there's carrier film in there, so that's going to be an interesting how that lays in. on that too. How this fits into that rear of the decking there, it can also be a challenge. These should go on really nice. They go in the very back areas there. And then I'm really sad, although I'll have to wait for the NX-01 Refit to do them. You know, these have nice pennants for the nacelles and nice pennants for the secondary hull that aren't used on this particular model. Of course, I'm not using the ISS Enterprise or ISS Avenger or any of the decals that come with that. So that's something that is not going to be made. Now, the other thing to keep in mind for color aficionados, which I am not great at that, these have a distinct greenish hue, almost a Kelly green on these, and fortunately it looks great against this pure titanium and rose copper mix. So I've got a bit of red. This actually looks red when you put it up against other steel colors, and I'll show you that maybe later during the reveal what that looks like. And so it's definitely got a greenish hue on these, and that's fine. I think it looks great, but just be aware if you're looking at color schemes, if you're going to do something different, especially with the NX-01 Refit, which I'm going to do next, and I'm going to try to do that more, not traditional colors of the TOS, but between this and the traditional color. So I'm going to go on a scheme between the two, even with the Lou Damaso Aztec Dummy mask. So that's going to be an interesting adventure on that paint, and then making sure that these green decals don't get lost, because it'll be the same in the other kit. So I'm going to let this dry for several hours, probably overnight. Lesson learned, and then when I come back, I'll flip it over, do the top, and then we will be essentially done with this NX-01. Like I said, the next step is doing the NX-01 Refit. And the reason I'm going to set this aside then at that point is because I have a base that I'm going to put the NX-01 and the NX-01 Refit onto to complement each other and run with just one single switch and one battery supply. So that'll be interesting to see that. One other couple of nice little tools here. This behind the nacelle here is normally dark gray. But because of this metallics, I want to do, or it's grayer. It's a different gray than the regular nacelle. So I use that champagne color there, and I like that. I think it turned out really nice. It still adds metallic, but heading towards that gray that we were looking for. One of the things that I'm not a fan of is the way that these nacelles fit in and leave this big gap here between the top and the bottom. It's part of the kit. It's what the regular NX-01 looks like. It's what the 350 looks like, but I think that model builders could have done something a little different. But for now, we'll leave this to dry. I'm going to put a coat of micro sol on here and then let it to finish up, and then we'll be done with the decaling for the bottom. Once that's dry, we'll flip it over and do the top. Thank you, and we'll be back with you. Alright, welcome back to the NX-01 Adventures in Decaling, and frankly, the bottom went on much better and easier than the tops. I think because the top has got a little larger surface area and a little more curves, maybe, to get these decals to stay on and stick. So what I've done is I've put the decals down, and now just coming back, they've had about an afternoon to dry here, so my next step is to deal with a couple of quick factor. So like over that didn't settle down, nor did that settle down, so we'll cut through that with a scalpel knife, and we'll throw some more of this down. Now I did have a problem that these drifted to the right, and this did not, so lesson learned when it comes to the NX-01 Refit. We'll have to deal with that. Also, this didn't turn out too shabby in the back, and if I just take my knife now and trim away that turns out really nice. Trim away the excess. It's really carrier film that I'm trimming away, not even the actual decal. And be careful. Now that looks pretty good. So I do need to put microsol on here, microsol on these, and then probably more on these landing bays. Those are fairly thick for some reason on those landing bays. But let me go ahead and put that microsol on there, And then that will bring us to the end of this batch. So all I'm going to do here is just kind of put a couple of nicks so that that microsol can make that settle down. Same thing here, just so that that microsol can get underneath there and make a little bit of progress. The rest of this is pretty decent. A couple of cuts in that. That's fine, that's fine. And maybe just a couple of pinpoints in there. Close enough. So now just my handy little brush and start working this microsol in. This decal could have gone better on the top. I'm not super thrilled with the way that that turned out, but you have to look close to see that it's off camber, or off kilter, if you will. And we're almost there on a couple of these pieces. So we'll let this microsol do its work. All in all, though, very nice on the decals round 2. Thank you so much. Makes it a lot easier when they work, when they don't disintegrate. The NX-01 Enterprise looks nice. That turned out really, really fantastic. Same thing here. This actually looks pretty good on the back of this landing deck or hangar deck, whatever you want to call it. For the most part, there's not a lot of decals on the top of this. Not a lot at all. So we'll let that hopefully settle in. And then our next update, we're going to bring this update number 2 to a close. Our next update is going to be on the NX-01 Refit as we break that out of its box, wash the parts, and start with the same process, the wiring and the lighting, etc. And like I said, I did get some special things, Lou Del Maso's Aztec dummy paint kit, paint mask, so I'm kind of excited about trying that on that little tiny model. That'll be an exciting time. So for now, until we come back to it in probably a month or so, this is the NX-01. Very pleased with that, and we will have a reveal of the NX-01, the NX-01 Refit, and we'll bring in a couple of guest stars when we do that, because we'll do some compare and contrast on a few things that I've done in the past. So for now, thank you so much. Thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for your comments. They're always very helpful. We've got to do micro crystal clear in the windows at some point here, but for the moment, we're going to let this dry and not touch it anymore. But thank you for your subscriptions. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit that like button. I appreciate that always. If you want to share, please share. And you know, that is always a big plus for us. Thank you for tuning in. I know that we're here at March 21st, I'm sorry, first day of spring. Hopefully last day of COVID-19 being so prevalent in our minds. Stay healthy, stay safe, be good to each other, of course, as Mr. Lou says, but also be good to your own self as far as staying safe and doing what's right for you and your family. We will get through this. The American people, the melting pot that we are, from all different races, colors, creeds, nations. When we pull together, we become Americans, and when we pull together, there's really nothing we can't accomplish. Love you all, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.